If you look at a map of climate zones, you would see that there are very similar climate zones in different parts of the world. The climate in Southeast Asia will be very similar to the climate in East Africa, for instance. They are placed around the equator, they have similar types of rainfall and altitude and so on, so it's very similar. But then the architecture, the traditional vernacular architecture is very different. Why is that? That's difficult to know, but you can see that there's very different solutions to the same climate. We expected there were some advantages in the Asian architecture over the African architecture when it came to the indoor climate. The Asian architecture is often very open. It's made from light materials, it's raised on stilts. It has a low thermal capacity, so it's quite cool inside. This is in contrast to the African house, which is typically made from quite solid materials standing on the ground, and it actually makes the house far more hot. And we tried to understand this in the first studies we were doing. We were trying to measure the indoor climate in 60 houses in 2 African countries and 2 Asian countries in similar climates. And what we could see was that the indoor climate in the African houses were much hotter in the African houses compared to the Asian houses, even though the outdoor temperature was very similar. So there was clearly a difference. And especially when we look at the temperature at night, it was obvious that the temperature was much higher in the African houses compared to the Asian houses. And why is that important? It's because when you go to bed at night and decide whether to use a bed net, the temperature is really important. If it's hot, you are more likely not to use your bed net because it will obstruct airflow and make you feel uncomfortable. This was to us inspiring. We thought that we might be able to take some of the principles from Asian architecture and translate them into a new African typology that would lower the temperature and create a better indoor climate and make it more possible for people to use a bed net in order to prevent malaria. Inspired by what we saw from the Asian houses, we started to make experiments. We made small experiments trying to change houses in Africa, rebuilding houses to see if we could lower the temperature by adding more ventilation and other features. We also made digital modeling, so we could see that it was, at least in theory, possible to lower the temperature and increase the comfort inside the African houses. When we started to look at the historical references, we did find a few examples, like this one from Angola from the early 20th century, where you see a similar architecture to the Asian. You see houses raised on stilts, made from light materials, looking very much like an Asian house, but in Africa. We concluded all this in a book called Healthy Homes in Tropical Zones, where we took all this knowledge and combined it and made it public. And this was the inspiration for the next phase, which is the Magoda project.